Hey everybody, Pat here again with another episode of the Fitness Business School, and I've got my good friend Eric Malzone here. Eric has the Podcast Collective and has spent a lot of time hosting his own podcast and building up, an amazing podcast platform. And now he shares his expertise with, other industry leaders to help them become successful using podcasting as a platform. So welcome, Eric.
Oh, Pat, this is a pleasure, my friend. I have so much to attribute to you for my career. I think I've told you this in the past, but I've been in this industry now for 17 years. Was a gym owner for 9, and your little black book of fitness business success back in the day was the first one I've read. I'm like, someone wrote a book for gym owners. Like, yes. And I've kept in touch with you throughout the years, and uh, you were coaching me officially when we conceptualized the idea for the podcast collective. So yeah, I mean, it's an honor, and I always enjoy our conversations. Obviously, I get a ton of value out of the work you do and the mind you have. So it's great to be here, man.
And the little black book, that's fun. I have that on the wall. That was the first book that I did, and tells you how much the landscape changed. I remember telling my older son Tyler, I'm like, hey, it's above Harry Potter on Amazon right now for like a day, right? During launch.
Right.
And now I could do anything and everything I could. And I'm like, man, I don't think I could crack like the top 1,000 books. But that's a testament to how the market's changed, how much more saturated everything is. And I think that's partially why I love what you're doing with the podcast collective. You're getting people attention on their brand, on their message, which in a pretty fragmented attention landscape, if you will, is become increasingly challenging.
Yeah, it's I was giving a talk to my local Rotary Club, which yeah, Rotary clubs still exist, and I encourage people to go check it out because they're a great way to give back to your local community. But I was talking about podcasting, and it's always curious to me to get a kind of a room of random people, seemingly random people, and doing like little surveys, like who listens to podcasts, who listens to one or more, or two or more, and then what kind of podcasts you listen to. And still there's probably about 30-40% of the people in the room who have never listened to a podcast. And then there's the power users, like, there's one woman in the crowd who listens to 10 or more every month. I'm like, okay, well, that's, first of all, you have a lot of time on your hands. But just seeing like how it's evolving, and how it was such a random thing. Like 8 years ago when I started listening to podcasts, 9 years ago, it was just this niche little thing. You didn't even know how to access it. It wasn't that, people didn't really know what it was. Is that like a radio station or not? But it's come so far, and I feel like now, in a world where people's attention is in such great demand, that authentic media, which I would deem as podcasting, where it's very genuine, it's very raw for the most part. It's long form for a lot of them, where you get to really get to know people. People are really craving it, and I think it's a great way to connect with people in a unique way. It's essentially a digital stage that you get on and talk in front of a bunch of people, and it's evergreen too. So I'm really happy where the medium is going. I'm really happy about the work that we're doing, and it's a lot of fun. It's dynamic, that's for sure.
Well, one of the things that I talked to a couple of our coaching groups about, yeah, it's probably been in the last 6 weeks, was this kind of shift back towards branding and clients or potential clients needing to spend a certain amount of time with your brand to build trust, to see that you're a person that they may want to do business with, that you're the right guide on their journey, whatever your offering may be. And let's say that it takes an hour of cumulative time that somebody spends with your brand to have that kind of comfort to actually have a conversation with you. Well,
Yeah.
in a really kind of fragmented landscape where it's, man, you're lucky to get 5 seconds here or 10 seconds there, or maybe if you're lucky, they read an email of mine that takes them 90 seconds to 2 minutes to get through. Um, it takes a lot of touch points to accrue that 60 minutes. And that's why I think what you're doing with the podcast collective has become maybe more valuable than it's ever been because it's hard to get somebody's attention to maintain it. And you're helping people really do that. Like, okay, hey, here's an opportunity for you to get in front of a select group of people who are predisposed to the topic or the area of interest because the way that you help people get on shows. And now they're going to give you this this hopefully relatively undivided attention for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes. You got to kind of carry the water. You've got to do the work to maintain that attention. But I mean, that's kind of the nature of the platform. So I mean, that was part of why I was so excited about us getting to talk. 'Cause I'm like, man, I'm a believer.
It's really interesting too because someone like you, Pat, or someone like me, like you've done, I think we were talking about, I don't know, over 600
Yeah.
episodes of your podcast. I've done getting close to 500 now for the future of fitness, and some of the other ones I've done are collectively about 900. But when you get on someone's podcast as a guest, you're essentially borrowing the trust that they've already established with the audience. Like people listen to Pat because they like Pat, right? They get value out of what you say. They've been listening for a long time. So when someone gets onto a podcast like that or like mine, there's automatically a certain level of trust that's built in just for the fact that you're there, and you can leverage that in so many ways. And I like the fact that you talked about branding too, because that is something that I think a lot of people don't quite understand. I mean, when you talk about someone's brand, even just to define it is a hard thing to do. And I love people who are branding experts, and I say that in quotation marks because I'll ask them, well, let's start with, the conversation with define a brand. And if they don't have that definition nailed down pat, then I'm like, oh, all right, maybe you should work on that. But no matter how you define it, it's a powerful thing, right? It's an emotional connection people have with you, or the first thoughts they have when they hear your name or your company name. And branding is becoming more and more important because, as you and I were talking about, lead generation or direct marketing is becoming more difficult for numerous reasons. Costs are up. Artificial intelligence is just flooding the world with more content, and people are looking for real connections. So yeah, authenticity and branding is something that we preach a lot. And I think what people understand, when you invest in branding, it's not something you're going to see an immediate ROI or attributable ROI. You have to trust in the process that it does work.
Yeah, I think that, for my maybe elementary way of thinking about things, it's like, man, I mean, your brand's what people think about you when you're not there, what they know about you, how they feel about you.
Mm.
And it's hard at this point for somebody to even be anything but invisible because there's so much out there. And so, if somebody spends some time with you, you as a spokesperson for your brand, they have feelings about you. They have a sense of who you are, how you can help. And I think the longer form of media like this is just such a powerful way to do it because you just get it condensed. I mean, I tell people all the time, you want them to come through your front door if you have a brick and mortar facility because there's no other way that, I can get somebody's relatively undivided attention for an hour as easily as, oh, you're in my facility. I can essentially put my best foot forward and hope it goes somewhere. Well, podcasting is kind of the virtual version of that.
And it's one of the things so we work with a lot of startup founders, mainly because I think we love the scrappy nature of what they do. They love the scrappy nature of what we do. It's, we're kind of figuring out something that hasn't been road mapped yet. But I've heard this from numerous times, especially in investor meetings, is that they'll go into, like, one was in a meeting with Goldman Sachs, and the due diligence that they did consisted of listening to a podcast interview that I did with them. So that's where it's come to, is like people are actually getting the information like, well, I want to get to know this person more deeply. So they'll search just normal Google search, and a lot of times interviews from podcasts will be right up at the highest ranking. So it's become a very powerful tool for those types of things too. It's like it may, it will drive direct business, right? When you hit the right audience with the right message at the right time, which as a master marketer, but also the secondary, the evergreen aspects of podcasting are very hard to attribute, but very, very real.
No. I mean, it's such a cool medium because you can binge, you can, I mean, I just, I know you and I had talked about this. It's probably been upwards of a year ago, but like the power of somebody even creating a local podcast
Yeah.
and becoming, for maybe lack of a better way of putting it, kind of the Oprah or Tim Ferriss or whoever of their community, like you're, well known by association at this point. So, I mean, there's so many different ways to leverage this because, yeah, I mean, if you were known, now you're in the game. Now you have an opportunity to become, become a trusted solution in whatever vehicle you're delivering something in. So let's shift a little bit. Tell me what Podcast Collective is doing for people now, because honestly, whether or not, somebody wants to enlist in help getting what you guys do done. I mean, these are problems that you have to solve if you're going to be either a podcast host or a podcast guest.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for asking, Pat. So, since you and I talked and we conceptualized this initially, when you were coaching me, it's evolved quite a bit. But the premise was the same, is that I felt that there is a large network of independent podcasters within the fitness, health, and wellness space. They're not connected, they're very fragmented. But if we become that central point where we connect them, we communicate with them, we offer value to them, we get everybody on the same page, whether that's events or webinars or whatever it may be. If we could just become that glue, that there'll be a lot of opportunities for that. So it's very specific. Like we're working within fitness, health, and wellness, and that's both B2B media and B2C media. So that's business to business or business to consumer. And the core service that we now offer is essentially we're a PR agency. But we do it specific to podcasting. So we'll have someone come on. Right now, we're onboarding Jeff Sweefel, who's the former COO at Lifetime. So we'll do in the initial phase is we'll do a series about 2 to 3 calls, maybe 4, where we extract as much information out of Jeff as we can. His background, his origin story, his success stories, what he wants to accomplish, the messages that he wants to get across, who he wants to talk to, all those things that we need. Then we'll take those, we'll build out these really very detailed media kits. And the media kits serve 2 things. So number one, they're a great hook. They're very professional. But also, if I send this to a podcaster who's about to interview Jeff, within 30 minutes with all the content that we have in there, they're prepped and ready to go. So we have that. We'll do initial press release. We'll do some coaching. We'll build out a landing page for them. We'll create a call to action if they need it. So something really simple, like if you go to pushpress.com/Dan, you'll see their CEO's call to action. And then once that's done, then we just get to it. So we start placing our clients on 2 to 3 podcasts every month. We do a strategy call. We update the media kits when necessary, and it turns this flywheel. Once it's going, it's crazy how successful it's been over time. I mean, Dan Waimura from Push Press, who I was just alluding to, we just did a case study of him, how he's been working with us for a year and a half, and how he can't stop getting on podcasts now. Like he had to take a break. He's like, guys, we have to stop because now it's organically, he keeps getting invited on ones and they keep getting bigger and bigger. And this one he was on, he did such a good job during the interview that they used it as an advertisement for their podcast. So now it turned into tens of millions of impressions. So beyond my wildest dreams would that ever have happened. So that's the core service. So we get people on podcasts and we do it through the lens of business development. The next thing we're doing is we're launching podcasts. So that's starting this month, where we're going to launch B2B podcasts. So if you're interested in if you're a consultant or an executive or a emerging thought leader, and you want a business development tool, we'll specifically build that out for you. And then the last thing we're doing now is podcast growth. So we found a really good service offering. It's a paid growth service, where we just did a test case on my own podcast, and it's pretty ridiculous. For an investment of about less than $1,000, I 10x'd one of my episodes downloads. So,
Wow.
and the residual effect on that. So, long story short, we place people on podcasts, we launch podcasts, and we grow podcasts.
So, all right. So I'm going to ask you for some kind of inside stuff here.
Please.
If somebody's trying to just in a local market, even start to use podcasting as a tool, whatever few things they could do.
Yeah, well, it depends. I would always encourage people to consider starting a podcast. I mean, I haven't found a good reason not to start one yet. One of the first introductions I had to podcasting was probably around 2011, 2012. So I was still a gym owner in Santa Barbara, California, and I was invited on a podcast called 805 Connect. And it was a great experience. He brought me into the studio, um, very professional, great interview. And I was like, well, why would they want to interview me? Right. And then I realized, oh, they're business consultants. This is what they do. So this was lead generation, its rawest form. And essentially, by bringing me in, um, think about if you look, kind of change the lens of it, look at it as a sales process, like outreach,
Yeah.
initial meeting, needs analysis, relationship building, right? All of that within the scope of or the guise of a podcast, which and it's still great content. So like, and now I became a very warm lead for them because they knew all of my problems, challenges I had as a business owner. And not only that part is you get this great lead generation or business development tool, but you also get the content, which you can repurpose in a million ways. As you know, like one specific interview or podcast episode can be all of the things. It can be a blog, it can be an email newsletter, it can be cut up into social media pieces. It can, you name it. There's nothing you can't do with it. So from that angle, I think starting a podcast is very valuable, and it's not that expensive, right? It just takes a little bit of time commitment, and don't stop at episode 4. That's where most of them end. That's where most of them go to the grave. So just commit to at least 50 episodes. But other than that, I think looking at podcasts that you listen to or ones that are hyper localized and they're not hard to find, you can just Google them and listen to them. Number one, if you're going to reach out to them, do it in a very authentic way. You and I were talking about how many AI driven pitches I get nowadays for my podcast. It's getting quite ridiculous. And more than anything, like the best way to get on a podcast is get referred by another guest. So if you know someone who's been on that podcast before, is reach out to them, say, hey, I love, Pat Rigsby's podcast. I would love an introduction if you don't mind, and go in from there. So there's a lot of different ways you can leverage it. But the best and most controllable way is to start your own.
Love that. So, all right. So that was the localized side of things. So
Yeah.
for somebody who wants a broader audience, the people that you work with now, predict the future a little bit for me here. Tell me where you think podcasting is going over the next 2, 3, 5 years, and how that is, I mean, how somebody can kind of skate to where the puck is headed.
Yeah. Well, I love that skate to where the puck is heading analogy. I was on Pete Moore's podcast recently, the Halo podcast, and he asked the question of, if this is a baseball game, what inning do you think we're in when it comes to podcasting? And I said we're in the fourth inning. So I think it's really, you look at who's investing in the ecosystem, and Spotify from a technical standpoint has done an amazing job, right? They are really doubling down on, they're going to own podcasting, and they're starting to steal market share from Apple. Apple's kind of sleeping on it a little bit. They bought Riverside, which is a recording platform, so they're integrating all these pieces so that they can really own that entire ecosystem. So I think you look at like how seamless it's going to be to start and continue to publish podcasts. It's going to get easier and easier, which I don't know if that's good or bad, right? The friction is going to be reduced, but I do think we haven't found yet a lot of the technical tools. Like, for example, if you're listening to a podcast that you've loved for a long time, let's say Acquired, right? Like, which everyone is passionate about right now, and you're like, God, I want to. This is a great episode. I want to share it. What do you have to do? You have to like copy and paste it, maybe put it into a text message or an email. There's a missing platform. There's a missing connective tissue that is going to be built out by someone. And I think I know who it's going to be because I was reading an article about it. But that whole system, like, how do we take this very fragmented world of podcasting and start to connect it in a way that's very meaningful? So that's going to be a tech play. I think it's going to be somewhat AI driven, but that's undoubtedly going to happen. Um, as far as like the medium itself, I think that the cream will continue to rise to the top and the best will become the best. Joe Rogan, Chris Williams, all these big names, Huberman, like they're going to maintain a certain stature, but you've also seen these ones come out of nowhere and hit the top 10 list, like seemingly in a matter of weeks. So I don't know where it's going exactly, but I know that it's fragmented. I think there's a lot of technological solutions that'll make it more accessible for more people, more shareable. And we'll see where it goes, but it's going to be an exciting ride, man.
Very cool. Paul, that's an edit for you, buddy. Um, all right. All right. So we've talked about what somebody can do in a very hyper local sense. We've talked about where it's headed. So really kind of before I wrap it up and ask how people can find you, everything else, I just want to see like, are there any other thoughts or suggestions that, I didn't know to ask about? Because you're the expert here. So I'm as curious as anybody else watching or listening.
Yeah, it's this has been topical because I was on a call yesterday with the Llama podcast, which is like Live Long and something else, LLAMA. Great host, great podcast, great following. He's been doing it for a while. If you're into longevity and health sciences, that's a really cool one to listen to. But we were talking about, how can we help him, or what are the challenges he faces? And I think when you go onto a podcast, be prepared, be a good guest. And I'm not just going to say that ambiguously. I'm going to give you some insights in what that means exactly. Is number one, listen to the podcast before you come on, at least 2 episodes, right? Get an idea of the vibe and the content. What do you think the mission or the goal is? Who they're serving, and but then specifically ask the host, like, who is your audience? Tell me about your audience. Like, what is the value that you want to bring to them? Understand the format. And this sounds real basic, but is it video? Is it video and audio? Or vice versa? Like, what is it? Have a nice background. If you have a good microphone or at least something, don't have dogs barking in the back, have a decent setting where it's quiet. So those seem like fundamental pieces, but they're really important. And the last thing I'll say is that is be a storyteller. So, um, you know, when someone asks you about, tell me about your business or tell me about what you do with your clients, don't spit out a bunch of statistics about like how you've improved their ROI or, the revenues or anything. Like, tell me a story about Jerry, the gym owner, right? If you consult with gym owners, like, give me a really tangible story that I can understand and relate to. That's what people remember. And also be authentic and genuine. Last thing I'll say about this is that I was talking about Dan from Push Press, is he's got a very unique story that was hard for him to tell at first. It was basically about him hitting rock bottom in his life, and that means drug addiction, felony charges, losing his gym, losing his marriage, all kinds of things that led to him to this one point where he was about to go into a very very rough jail in California, and he was waiting in line to go into the bus, and then he got called out. And I won't ruin the story, but it's extremely memorable. And by being authentic and telling that story, he's become a very popular guest. People remember who he is. And it's all about second chances. It's that classic underdog story that we love in the United States. So I think those are the big things: is work on being a great guest, and you'll get invited on more podcasts, or you'll make more impact when you're on it.
Love it. Love it. So, I mean, obviously, you're my go-to person whenever it comes to learning more about podcasting. So where can people find more about you so you can be their go-to person too?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Pat. So, two places I would say is podcastcollective.io. That's our website. You can find more information about all of our services and our clients and our media kits, and you can really dive in. There's a ton of material there for you to look at. And then I'm very active on LinkedIn, so you can just find me at Eric Malzone.
Very cool. Well, Eric, I appreciate you coming on, spending some time together. I always uh, just get so much enjoyment out of our conversations and just being able to virtually hang out like this. So I appreciate it a bunch. And I also appreciate you kind of pulling back the curtain on the podcast world for all the people listening in. So thanks a bunch.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. It's a pleasure.
All right, that's Pat and Eric with another episode of Fitness Business School signing off.